So I sort of want to get into the Roger Rabbit shorts because there's kind of a thing in the animation community, or at least the older animation community, about Roger Rabbit as a cartoon character. Everyone loves Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's sort of a discussion over whether Roger Rabbit is a good cartoon character or not, and that's been a long conversation. I like him in the movie. I think he works in the movie. I never really liked the shorts as much. And the shorts, if he didn't make enough of a compelling cartoon character, he's sort of a Bugs Bunny / Tex Avery / this and that kind of a character. And they did try to make shorts that would play before theatrical films with Roger Rabbit. This one, being Tummy Trouble, actually played before Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. They would later re-release it with other things like Toy Story and Aladdin in certain countries and certain things like that. Or if they re-release certain movies, they'd go, oh, we have a special, you can see Beauty and the Beast again and stuff. They'd sometimes do that. But basically, this was the first one it played before Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, like I think a year or two after Roger Rabbit. Now, or the next year. Now, the Roger Rabbit rights are sort of weird because it's half owned by Steven Spielberg and Amblin and Disney. So it's kind of a weird amalgamation of the thing. Now, Tummy Trouble is basically like Baby Herman gets, it's a maroon cartoon, all that stuff. Baby Herman gets a rattle stuck in his throat, and so Roger takes Baby Herman to the hospital, and hijinks ensue and so forth. I don't, gotta say, I don't love the gags in the short. It's not like made like an amazing Looney Tunes stuff, and it feels like Rob Minkoff, who directed the animation parts of like most of this, isn't really a gag animator. It's like different between like a Gendy or a Chuck Jones or someone like that who understands how to do a ton of different like gags. Like a gag animator, Rob Minkoff is not really. And it just felt like he was going for like the big, craziness of all this. It's also interesting, why wasn't Richard Williams involved in any of this? I just find that to be weird. Like, he did voice Droopy in this, because I've heard did he voice Droopy in the Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That I forget. But I kind of, when watching Tummy Trouble, it's funny, it's cool to see all the characters again. I'm sure it was fun. I've heard people who came to each of the Roger Rabbit shorts specifically. I've always heard people say that. I never knew anybody like that at the time. But it's sort of like a funny reminiscent thing of it. But I kind of wish it was, the thing about this is that eventually you see the live action parts, which Frank Marshall directed at the end of it, and it seems to like really want to be like, hey, it's Roger Rabbit, so you know the gimmick. I sort of wish it was just an animated cartoon and none of the live action parts, but I guess they really wanted to show it off. And it just like, it isn't really even as funny as the intro cartoon at the beginning of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It is sort of funny, I sort of like it, but it does like, it's not compelling and it's not really animated in a way that feels like a real short. It feels like people sort of mimicking a short in a weird way. It's not made by someone, like, just not made by someone who do gags and like a Chuck Jones, like, people who made Looney Tunes or Mickey Mouse or something like that. And I wish Tummy Trouble had been animated like someone like that. It just felt too manic. But Rob Minkoff would go on to really co-direct Lion King, and then work on Stuart Little and all sorts of stuff. And this was the first Disney animated theatrical short in about 16 years, which is insane. So it did kind of like give Disney a precedent to have kids get used to an idea of shorts, even though they only made 3 of these things. And none of them went as amicably, apparently, as this one did. But Tummy Trouble is like fine. It's on Disney Plus. It's also on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's fun seeing Roger Rabbit and stuff, but it kind of sells the idea that I don't think Roger Rabbit could sell a cartoon or be a cartoon superstar the way he's portrayed in the movie. And it's fine how he is in the movie. Like, it works in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but like taking him out of that like further shows evidence that he could never be like a Bugs Bunny or something like that. He is that character because of his role in the movie, not his role as a cartoon character in actual cartoon, although he did make it for being a cartoon character, but a cartoon character in a live action movie. It's weird, but Tummy Trouble further kind of proves that point, really, because it just doesn't really work. It's like there's no gags that I really laughed at. It was just like I had fun, sort of. It was like fine, but I've never really liked these shorts, and I kind of just wanted to go back into them and maybe see, maybe there's a better gag in it, but I'll have to check it out with the next one. But as for Tummy Trouble, it's just sort of like an interesting little exercise, maybe like an interesting corporate exercise to get you more excited right before you see Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But that's sort of all it really was, and just sort of reminded you of Roger Rabbit, and maybe just rewatching Who Framed Roger Rabbit than doing this. Anyway, so Roller Coaster Rabbit. This is the second Roger Rabbit short that played before a movie. Now, this is kind of one that I think it is a little more animated. It's a little more funkier than the first one, and I think I like it a little bit more than the other one. It doesn't really, like I said with the other Roger Rabbit short, with Roller Coaster Rabbit, you don't necessarily like Roger Rabbit as a personality. I don't think this kind of makes you think, hey, maybe he is a character with more personality than just within Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He's more than that, and he can be a successful animation character before movies. But the direction in this, and this is the same team that did the previous one. So the live action is by Frank Marshall. The animation is done by Rob Minkoff. It's just a simple, like, Roger and the baby are at a amusement park. The mom goes off and is going to get tarot cards read, and he, like, paints her nails and stuff, which does... There's more personality to the animation, I will say. And the baby runs away, and Roger chases the baby and stuff. And that stuff's kind of fun. There's a bull involved. And then when it really gets going is when they get on the roller coaster, which is, the titular roller coaster, I guess. And things get really crazy. The design gets weirder. They run into Jessica Rabbit just for a little bit. Is Droopy is in these, and like, does Spielberg, has he 50% own this with Disney? Does he own Droopy as well? I'm curious about that. They almost run her over, but they don't. They actually roll off of the film reel. So if you saw this in the theater, that must have been really crazy, and ride on the actual film itself, and then come back into the movie out of the film that's on screen. All sorts of crazy stuff. And I have to say, I like this one a lot more than the previous cartoon, and I think it shows a lot more fun. It was like a fun cartoon. Like, I actually sort of like Roger more, and it seemed like less like him talking and more of just action. And I feel like Roger sort of works better in that sort of Tom and Jerry mode where you just see him going through various things. And so the Disney Plus thing, I want to bring this up. I searched on Disney Plus Roger Rabbit, everything, the shorts come out, everything like that. Then I searched the name of this movie, this short, Roger Rabbit, still didn't come up. So I was like, what? Maybe I have to go to the extras of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but that just seems like a bit much. This, I think, has a lot more personality, has a lot more fun, has a lot more fun with the animation. It makes me want to see another Roger Rabbit short. And it probably inspired a lot of people. But guess what? There wouldn't be another one until 1993. So you're like, wait, what? Because before this, we got 1988, we got Who Framed Roger Rabbit. 1989, we got Tummy Trouble. 1990, we got Roller Coaster Rabbit. So what happened? So Spielberg wanted this movie, this short, to play before Arachnophobia. The deal with Roger Rabbit is 50% of it is owned by Spielberg, the other 50% is owned by Disney. So, bonkers, by the way. No, sorry. So basically, Spielberg wanted this to play before Arachnophobia. Michael Eisner wanted this to play before the U.S. theatrical release of Dick Tracy, so that it would help hype up Dick Tracy. Michael Eisner won, and Spielberg then canceled the production of the next short, which was going to be Hair in My Soup, which was then canceled. There's a couple other ones that have names to it, which I'll talk more about when I review the next one. But there wasn't another short that came out until 1993, from what I've read, because of this argument, because Spielberg felt frustrated. He originally did want to make like maybe a short a year or something to play before Disney features, but he was kind of upset by the fact that like he's helping make a movie with a studio with Disney, and he can't have his character that he owns 50% stake in play before Arachnophobia. Now, Arachnophobia is like a horror movie, and I will sort of side with Michael Eisner in that I know more kids who saw Dick Tracy than Arachnophobia, and I think it sort of worked a little better. And if it was me, I probably would have picked Dick Tracy over Arachnophobia. But that is what happened there, and there was sort of a disagreement, and it kind of ended the Roger Rabbit shorts for a little bit until 1993, where you get a totally different creative team, and we'll get into that at another time. But basically, Roller Coaster Rabbit was sort of the end of kind of this period of just like every year you get a new piece of content from Roger Rabbit. I think it is probably, of the two shorts I've seen so far, is the one I like the most. It is the most fun, is the most kind of like funnest experience. It's the weirdest. But I think it's more of Roger Rabbit's better at being on a journey than being stuck with Roger Rabbit as a character. Much like Indiana Jones, but that's a whole other thesis. And that's what I liked about this. Roger Rabbit going on kind of this crazy journey following Baby Herman, I think, was actually kind of worth it to me. I think that is really cool, rather than him like reacting and talking. The dialogue with Roger Rabbit doesn't work as well when he's not with, Bob Hoskins or something. So I think this one makes a better case for it if they made them more like this. And this is more like what Tex Avery was anyway, because he's supposed to be like Tex Avery's kind of a Tex Avery inspired type of character, was at least the thesis I've always heard. But Roller Coaster Rabbit is a fun watch. If you're going to watch any of them, at least so far, I would recommend this one. It's a lot of fun, even if it's a little hard to find on Disney+. So, let's talk about Roger Rabbit Trail Mix-Up. So, this is the third of the 3 theatrical Roger Rabbit shorts. It came out on March 12th, 1993, with the film A Far Off Place, which Reese Witherspoon's in, apparently. This is actually directed by a different team, Barry Cook, not Rob Minkoff and Frank Marshall, who did the live action. Rob Minkoff did the animation, although Rob Minkoff produced and helped write it. There was a definite delay between them, and because of what I talked about last time with the Roger Rabbit shorts, where Steven Spielberg got upset at Disney because them wanting to put it before Dick Tracy instead of Arachnophobia, even though I think that was a better choice, but I get he had a 50% stake and actually canceled a short that was already in development, which was called Hair in My Soup. He canceled it during it was like pretty far in pre-production, and he canceled that. And they actually canceled a bunch of other things they were developing in terms of Roger Rabbit stuff, and then worked on this one. Now, what's interesting is both this one and Roller Coaster Rabbit were made at the Florida studio rather than the California studio, so things like Mulan were made there, as well as Lilo and Stitch. They're a little looser, that studio. So watching this, I kind of came to a realization, and I think, not a realization, but something did dawn on me while watching this Roger Rabbit short, is because I've watched, I've gone through all the Roger Rabbit shorts, and I told you guys before at the beginning of this that I didn't feel like, and a lot of people felt, that Roger Rabbit doesn't make a compelling cartoon character. He doesn't make a good cartoon character, he just makes a good character in the story of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I agreed with until this short. Because this short, I think, introduces more of a formula. This one and Roller Coaster Rabbit work in a particular way that you get used to this formula, and you get used to what a Roger Rabbit cartoon should be, and it feels a little more unique. Whereas I think when Roger Rabbit, in both this and Roller Coaster Rabbit, they combine an absurd sense of comedy where just something ridiculous cartoony will happen with slapstick. I don't think that was highlighted as much in Tummy Trouble as it was in these two, and I think it works really well in this, and they get really slapstick. This is the silliest of the Roger Rabbit shorts. I think that's probably because it's directed by a different person, and a different creative team for the most part, although Rob Minkoff's there doing some stuff, but this seems to be a different thing. There's a lot of funny bits. I mean, the fact that the mom goes hunting is completely ridiculous. I mean, this plays it up so much, because it's like, why are they camping? Who cares? She's going hunting, and she'll basically kill Roger if something happens to baby. Which nothing happens to that baby. Like, everything just happens to Roger. Someone should watch after Roger, not this baby. Like, this baby's fine. Baby, like a tree gets cut and almost it's like crazy. But this plays differently. You get more of a Jessica Rabbit cameo than the previous ones, or just had her walking by or say a line. She has a whole scene, which is nicer. You get Droopy, who has to be in every Roger Rabbit thing apparently. Not sure why, but he's there. And I'm also not sure why the delay. I'm very curious how this one came together, which I can't find. Why suddenly it seemed like Hair in My Soup was canceled, then they made this. There's no reason behind it. But I think what works about this is we basically get the same formula we've gotten ever since the Roger Rabbit short we see at the beginning of Who Framed Roger Rabbit to, all these others, the separate theatrical shorts is, the mom comes in and says, don't screw this up, I'll take you to the science lab, I'll shoot you in the face. She's a terrible employer, but, also, you're fired, all this stuff. She seems like the worst. And the baby's not great either, but that's Roger's job apparently. But you set this up, and having goes through this slapstick thing, although it works in Who Framed Roger Rabbit very well, if you're just watching that as an isolated thing, it doesn't work as well as its own thing. And I think when you play more with it and have more fun, like a Looney Tunes Tex Avery would, it highlights it more. But at this point, watching this cartoon, I'm getting used to the structure. the idea of what a Roger Rabbit short is. And I kind of thought about one of the things that hurts Roger Rabbit versus all the other cartoon characters is you probably know what a Roadrunner and Bugs Bunny cartoon is. You probably know what a Tom and Jerry cartoon is just by the structure, because we get so used to it. We're sort of desensitized to the structure. We don't even think about it. It's like background noise. You're just there for the gags. And the problem with Roger Rabbit is the specific kind of structure, which they definitely adhere to. A Roger Rabbit short adheres to a certain thing. And by the time watching this one, my mind is playing with me like, oh, this is how it's supposed to go. This is what Roger's supposed to do. And I instantly like this kind of a style. Now, the thing that sucked is, like, I got this on the last one. But the thing with Bugs Bunny is, like, by the time, you know, you're 7 or 8, you've seen, like, 100 Bugs Bunny cartoons, theoretically. So I think, while watching this one, I started to accept Roger more, but he didn't have the luxury that all these other characters had. He, theoretically, only had 4 shorts, if you want to count Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but really it's 3. And, you know, one was 3 years later. So I feel like the idea of Roger as a separate cartoon character never really got to happen because Bugs and Mickey Mouse and Pluto and Goofy, which is, you know, Roger's biggest influence, I guess, he never really got to build up that much. So I actually don't think, now I've changed from, I don't think it's the character's fault, like the character's bad or written too thin. I think it's the fact that we don't get to have that built up kind of knowledge of him, because that never happened, because our relationship with him as a viewing audience never got to get there. But I like the absurdity of this. I like the live action parts, which I think is the only time the live action parts and the animated parts are directed by the same person. The live action parts, like, he destroys, like, Mount Rushmore. He basically destroys the world, so I guess that's why this is the last one. All this crazy stuff happens. This one goes to ridiculous extremes, which I sort of love, really, about it. It makes Trail Mix-Up, like, a lot of fun. The thing is, like, I really want another one in this style. It felt like really cool. But this one, I think, is the most cartoony of all of them and doesn't rely on the fact that, oh, we better show the live action world because, you know, you remember that's how you know Roger Rabbit, because cartoons in real world, like, they don't rely on that. And that also might be why I was, like, so passionate and sort of surprised by this, because the other ones sort of rely so heavily on it. But it does, like, play off of, like, I actually didn't know when Baby Herman broke character. I was like, wait, this isn't the cartoon still? Like, that was very, very good. Also, the cartoon on this used the CAP system, which is a compositing system. Also, with the color, a lot more of this was done in the computer. This did play on with a Far Off Place, which also I think is why, like, this one's a little more obscure than the others, because I've never heard of a Far Off Place. Is that a movie? I've like never heard of it before this. So I'm probably sure, you know, I did see, like, there was a tape later that had all 3 on it in '96 that you could watch all 3 shorts. I'd seen this short before because of that. I do not think I saw it before this movie, unless this movie made no impression on me. But this did play in the UK before Tarzan, and then in the US before Treasure Planet, and then in Australia before Brother Bear. So if you are like, but Jim, I saw this not before this obscure-ass Disney movie, it's because you saw it, in America at least, on Treasure Planet, since most of you are American. So yeah, I kind of came off of this one feeling a lot more positive about Roger, feeling a lot more positive about the idea of Roger Rabbit cartoons, and I think, you know what, we need to make more of them. I think it's a damn shame they didn't make more. The other ones that were considered, and I want to list these off, the other titles that were considered there were 3 more considered: Clean and Oppressed, Beach Blanket Bay, and Bronco Bustin' Bunny. And they were in the planning stages, but they were all canceled. Supposedly, I keep reading they're in the planning stages in the previous iteration of the that ended in 1990. We don't really know how true any of that is, but it seems like that is to be true. This really showed me more of the promise. I think the last 2 showed me, like, what should a Roger Rabbit cartoon be, and I think it showed you it can be more than slapstick, because it's like, do I really need another slapstick cartoon character? Not necessarily, but the weird absurdity and the crazy lengths they go made me want to watch another Roger Rabbit cartoon. I think Trail Mix-Up does that really well. He has some funny slapstick bits actually as well, with the bees and all this stuff, but the things that really stuck out to me are, like, the real absurdity between, like, the tree almost squishing Baby Herman to, like, destroying Mount Rushmore to all these various things. It just looked like they had a lot of fun making it, and I think Barry Cook might come off as maybe this might be the best directed one, because he really just seemed to take his own and make and show what Roger Rabbit could be as just a cartoon character.